One wish for you as a golfer, what would it be? Oh, please, I'd like to be able to swing like Ben Hogan and know as much as Ben Hogan. Wouldn't we all? I knew Ben Hogan so well, and most of what I've been sharing with you comes from Ben Hogan, like the plane of the swing, which extends through the shoulder and down the shaft, like the position of the elbows. So much for Hogan. So what we've done is just put it all together and compiled it for you. Ben Hogan learned from the best, a pane of glass. You go, well, I can understand why you're holding a pane of glass, Iron Man, because, well, golf's a pain for me. You know what? It's a pain for every one of us. If you've never said, I hate this game, I'm never going to play golf again, you throw down your clubs, and then 5 minutes later you begin to assemble them back and put them in the bag, and the game's got you hooked. But let's use this pane of glass to understand Hogan's greatest lesson for you. And it has to do with the plane of the golf swing. For Hogan, the golf ball is here. He is here. His shoulders are right up against the pane of glass, and his head is protruding through. This pane of glass, my head is sticking over it, and down there is the golf ball. The top of the golf ball is the pane of glass extended. So your whole swing is always under this pane of glass. Incidentally, we said about it being a pain. I want to tell you this, golf's such a pain. Hogan almost quit. He was making absolutely no money. He's traveling with his wife, Valerie, and they were down, get this, they had no money for food. They were just eating oranges in Northern California, and he finished in 6th place in the Oakland Open. He won $283, something like that, able to eat again, put some gas in the car, and that started Ben Hogan on his way. Remember what I said, golf, you don't fail, you just quit too soon. Stay with it. The ball, set right there, and then this is the plane of the golf swing. So the entire time that you're swinging, on the backswing, on the downswing, on the follow through, you are under this pane of glass. You ready? Let's stay under that great plane that Ben Hogan has for us to visualize in our golf swing. How's that help? Well, it eliminates the 3 basic mistakes that most middle and high handicappers make. Let's say you're making your swing and you've got this habit of getting about here and then you lift up. So the swing looks like this. Well, you're going to break the plane of glass. You're going to break the plane of glass. So you go back, and instead of lifting, you stay right here, and as you turn, you come back under this plane and finish. You've gotten rid of that error. The next mistake that more than half golfers make is their power side, which is the right shoulder for right-handers, the left shoulder for left-handers. You want to hit the ball, and you're so anxious with this right shoulder that the swing looks something like that. I shattered the pane of glass because I came back, bang, I hit the glass, bang, I hit the glass, just hit it everywhere. So the swing begins to, even if you're driving the right shoulder, looks like this. And doesn't that look better visually? You know it's a better swing. And then the hang back swing, where it looks like that. You say, how in the world does that help? Well, if you're hang back, you're right here, you're already broken the plane of glass. You're going like this, and it's just absolutely miserable. So it stops the lift, it stops the power shoulder, and it stops the hang back. Learn from Hogan's greatest lesson, and it will help you more than any other tip you have ever received. Swing under that plane of glass, on the backswing, at impact, and on the follow through. and you will be absolutely amazing. I was at Media Day for the Colonial, which was Hogan's club later in life, and he had already become friends or acquaintances with me. And Hogan came up to me and he says, "Bob, you want to play a few holes?" Going, "Yeah, of course." So we played 9 holes together there at Colonial. Hogan only said one thing to me, which I remember to this day. He goes, "Bob, you might want to watch that right elbow." I never ever thought about my right elbow in the swing. So let's examine this incredible secret of Ben Hogan for accuracy and distance, and it'll be a great lesson for you. Elbow in the golf swing, what are we talking about? Well, did you ever play baseball and maybe you were shortstop or second baseman? Shortstop especially. He feels the ball and then he throws it like that. This is the move, and it gives you accuracy and quickness. Also, stop and think. If you were going to hold a bowling ball in your right hand, or left hand if you're left-handed, you wouldn't hold it with your arm like this. You'd turn that elbow up and the palm up, and you'd strongly support. Well, okay, let's put a golf club in there. Look at that. That's the power position with that elbow here. When that elbow goes like that, there is no power. It's a release of power. So just remember that elbow, that trailing elbow, has to be in this position as you're in this downswing position so that you can strike the ball and release. Now it comes to the full swing. Remembering this elbow, which has been staying close to the body, both of them, as it gets longer and longer, but now you're ready for the swing. And Hogan would take it with that wonderful shoulder turn, and then he would come down. And right here, that right elbow would be far in front of the wrist, so forth, and then he would come right to here and release and finish with that beautiful finish. All that power, all that speed, but he was in perfect balance. One of the greatest shot in golf of all time is Ben Hogan, 1950 at Marion, hitting that 1-iron on the 18th hole that secured the par that got him into the playoff and won the United States Open. And you remember that picture where Hogan is perfect balance. Right after he has hit this enormous drive with that right elbow. If you want a great instructional book, just go get the 5 Fundamentals of Golf by Ben Hogan. That's all you will ever need. In the late 60s, I believe it was, Hogan appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show, which was the biggest show in television at that time, and he gave an instructional tip. Ed Sullivan loved golf, so he loved getting the free lesson from Hogan. What was Hogan's lesson?
Clutch your sides with your elbows and visualize your elbows being attached to your body and your arms instead of at your shoulders, and just start moving your body from right to left around in a circle, holding your elbows in your side, right in your side. Now, we can't go around a golf course doing this all day, so we must lengthen this swing somewhere or other. You see, this is an absolutely full swing. Isn't that simple?
He said the most important part of the golf swing is the relationship of the elbows to the hips. In other words, we think our arms hang from here down, and that's how we think the swing is. Hogan says it's the elbows and the hips connected. So in other words, he is like this and this. See the connection? The elbows are staying right with the hips. So see, they turn together. And then as you swing and the swing gets longer, the elbows move away from the hips just a bit. But if you focus on the hips being connected to the elbows, you're going to be very successful and have a very tight, good Hogan-like swing. So first we're doing this, elbows, 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 and then pretty soon we're That's actually a Hogan-esque type swing, but I felt connected. See, elbows tight, shaft position. Oh, Hogan, you are so good. Thank you for watching. We've got a lot more with Hogan just to follow, but first, take time and subscribe if you haven't. Press the like button if you haven't. If you have a question about Ben Hogan that you don't quite understand, just ask it in the comments section. We'll get right back to you, I promise. And now we'll get right back to Ben Hogan. Hogan loved the fade, the little left to right shot, because for years he fought that hook, fought it terribly, and he finally came to the conclusion that the only way he was going to be a big time winner on the PGA Tour was to hit this slight fade, a power fade, and it was low, so was Trevino's, but both of them became great champions because they never had to worry about anything on this side of the fairway. There could be a lake, there could be out of bounds, whatever. They were going to go either straight and just trickle a little bit to the right. What a great feeling that is. Two different concepts, and yet pretty much the same concept. It has to do with the lead hand. In the case of a right-hander, it's the left hand. Of course, the lead hand for a left-hander is this one, but the principle is exactly the same. That is, the lead hand cannot turn over. In other words, it cannot do that. So it has to keep leading all the way through. If the back of the left hand stays all the way, this club face, which mirrors the back of the left hand, it's not going to do that. If it turns over, it's a hook, a snap hook, and you are done. Hogan liked the raised left wrist. In other words, like this. Raising the wrist at impact meant that that club could not turn over, but had to stay straight. A little complicated, but you can use the back of the left hand or the raised left wrist to make sure that the ball is going straight or a little bit left to right. We talked about Hogan and Valerie, his wife, really struggling. And then all of a sudden, he began to win. In fact, he's the only professional golfer to win 10 or more tournaments in a single year, and he did it twice. He won 10 in 46, and in 48, he won 13. But then tragedy hit. He'd coming back from the Phoenix Open, 1949. It was foggy. Hogan had a new Cadillac, and he hit an oncoming Greyhound bus head on. The Greyhound bus was passing. Hogan, at the last second, in his determination to save his wife Valerie, dived and covered her with his body. That saved Hogan's life because the steering wheel went straight through the seat. Hogan was in the hospital for 59 days. The doctors thought he would not live. In fact, there were premature reports that Hogan had died. He couldn't walk. 59 days in the hospital. That was in November 1959 that he began to struggle and walk a little bit, and hit a few golf balls. And then the first tournament, the next season, LA Open. What happens with Hogan? He ties with Sam Snead. They have to play the playoff because of rain a week later, and Snead wins in the playoff, but technically he finished in first place, a tie for first place. Can you imagine that, coming back from that tragedy? The tenacity that he had to learn how to hit a golf ball, and the courage he had to come back from the most devastating injury anybody could possibly have. It affected him the rest of his life. He had to have his legs bandaged from the top of his legs all the way down to his ankles for the rest of his life. That's why he never played in the PGA anymore, because you had to play 36 holes in one day. It was difficult, but he came back to have the greatest year any golfer's ever had. 1953, he entered three majors, won all three: the United States Open, the British Open, and the Masters Championship. All in all, he entered 6 tournaments and won 5 of the 6. Greatest year anybody has ever had, all because he had tenacity and courage. And you have the same thing within you. That's just my pep talk for the day. Stick with it, stay with it. But let's go back and review Hogan's greatest lesson, the plane of the golf swing. And thank you for staying with us, and subscribe. Get your friends to subscribe, because there's a lot to learn on absolutely amazing golf. I enjoyed sharing with you about Ben Hogan, and especially the message that every one of us needs to hear. That basically is, you're not alone. Think about all the tough things you're going through, and then you think about what Hogan went through, almost lost his life, and yet rebuilt his life and came back better than ever, if not physically stronger than ever. But boy, was he, his greatest years were after that horrible crash. I just can't get enough of Ben Hogan. I learned so much by just watching with you. So we're going to have some more with Ben Hogan down the line, but meanwhile, thank you for watching, and keep your elbows in tight, and may your life and your golf be absolutely amazing.